he's in danger of becoming the second coming of Dwight Howard. Remember, Dwight Howard was the man in Orlando, just like Paul George was the man in Indiana. He wanted to leave. He goes to LA, he ends up going to Houston, and then before long, he's a journeyman, Washington, Charlotte, etc. Because the star that he once was, he was no more. And so because of that, everybody says they harken back to that. He should have never left Orlando. That was an ideal situation for him. They built the franchise around him. Even though he didn't win the chip, they got to the finals in 2009. And now Dwight Howard is a role player, even though I think he's doing an exceptional job in LA in a reserve role.
What up there, Comment 6 2K fans? So, you heard what Stephen A. Smith said. In my opinion, Paul George is underrated, overrated, underachiever. What do I mean by this? I'll get more into this in the video. I disagree with what Stephen A. Smith is saying by saying that Paul George might be becoming, the Dwight Howard, which is sadly untrue. And I'll explain why in the video. Let's get into it. Basically, when it comes to Paul George in general, when he was talking about the Indiana situation, it's kind of unfair. Because like it's in the Paul George OKC video, they said once Paul George came back from his injury, it was only him and George Hill. Which is true. And may I remind you, Stephen A. Smith, Toronto was still a good team before they got Kawhi Leonard. Made it to the Western Conference Finals more than once to go up against LeBron and lose every time. But that's every team in general. So allow me to explain to you this. The problem in general was that Paul George actually put up a good fight against Toronto. It was that he didn't have a good enough team. And it makes sense for him to leave, Indiana at this situation because it felt like they were in rebuild mode and were probably not going to try anything as they were mostly relying on to build off the draft and not going to try to draft anyone at another level. Literally, they had lost all their star players except for George Hill at that time. So, yeah, I don't get how that situation is exactly the same. Sorry for the bad quality, guys. This is video footage I found around, so yeah. But still, this is actually not a fair situation for Paul George. As I'll get in later into the OKC situation, in my opinion, which I think wasn't a horrible situation, but still is a horrible situation when you look back on it. So let's get into it. This is not the same situation in Indiana. The problem was that when Paul George and Russell Westbrook got together, Paul George decided he would be the number 2 and Russell Westbrook would be the number 1. May I start by saying that was the worst decision yet, in my opinion, as Paul George decided to become the number 2 when he didn't have to be that. Literally, if Paul George was the number 1 of this team, this OKC team, they would have probably won. I mean, I'm not saying they would have made it. They could have possibly made it to the second round Western Conference Finals, but that's how far they would have probably went. That's how far. I'm sorry to be honest with you, and that's keeping it real. That's the only way they really would have won, but still, going on with Paul George, like I said before, that's who they really needed to win until they got OKC trade. So yeah, that was the main problem was when they decided to do this. Paul George decided to be the number 2. Russell Westbrook decided to be the number 1. And the problem with that trade was, in general, was you're making Russell Westbrook, like I said before, a person that doesn't take a 3, your main number 1. Which is why Kevin Durant was sued as the best number 1. And that's the reason why. But even going in more, I'm going to get into Dwight Howard and showing how they're not comparable. But still, like I said before, unlike these two players in general, Paul George literally got injured. He was injured. So this team, like I said before, Indiana was going into rebuild mode right when he got injured. Right when he got injured, everyone seemed to leave. So Paul George had no choice. Dwight Howard was not injured. He was on contending teams, literally. I'm going to get even more into that. But let's keep going on what I was saying. This team literally kind of fell to the slump mode, as if I have to say even more. This team could have won if they actually got another player they can work with. Superman's in the building. Please don't hurt me, Shaq. So I'm here to explain to you this reason. The Dwight and Paul George situation is not the same because of the reasons I'm about to give to the Dwight situation and Paul George's situation now. So let's get into it. His situation. Yeah, I've seen people get this mixed up. When Dwight left Orlando, that was a bad decision, just like him leaving the Houston Rockets. Still in my opinion. But what I'm going by is saying this. He decided that was the best decision where in Orlando, they were trying to at least build around Dwight, getting players like J.J. Redick and a lot more. But I'm then going to go to the next team that really didn't do nothing. Indiana General was rebuilding right in front of Paul George's eyes. He's seen that going on. He literally seen that was going on right in front of him and knew that he could have been the next player on the trading block. That's what he saw was going on in general. He didn't see that this team was getting old. He saw that this team was in rebuild mode and he wasn't coming back at full level. They would possibly want to trade Paul George. They wouldn't want to re-sign him. They would possibly want to trade him. I get you to say, but he's their main star. Why would they want to trade them? In general, like I said before, they were in rebuild mode. He's seen that happening, which many people don't get. I literally said that they weren't trying to get a center. I mean, imagine if this team tried to get Dwight Howard, but they couldn't because they're a small organization. When they went on this winning streak again in the 2009 season, this in general was a lucky season. Like I said before, against Cleveland Cavaliers, it was just LeBron James again. Unlike this Orlando team that's had a bunch of players that were closers and could put three. So yeah, that's how good this team was. The 76ers versus Boston, those series were close in my opinion. In general, Boston should have won that series, but even though they didn't, it was so. But still, what I said before is why I mean this series should have never went that far as a win. This is why they got knocked out by Kobe and the Lakers. After taking from the great things more from Kobe. I'm just saying, this team was young. This team wasn't as good as we thought they were in 2009. We were saying, oh yeah, they might actually defeat Kobe since it doesn't have Shaq. Then they lose to him. This proved out the East was weak. That year we started seeing that the East wasn't as big and bad as we thought it was compared to the West. But like I said before, this is what started to happen. This team really didn't have anything wrong with them. And that's why they started losing the series. So yeah, against Paul George, his situation was, again, the team was in rebuild mode and just had him and George Hill, where even in the Toronto Raptors series, Paul George and George Hill actually tried to win the series. They fought hard while the rest of their players weren't doing anything in general, and they had never been in the playoffs. If they had an original team, I'm pretty sure they would have actually beat Toronto Raptors possibly, and made it right back to the Western Conference Finals to go up and lose against Cleveland. So I agree with that. But still, without that young and running team, they couldn't win them. So what I'm saying is, here is Paul George didn't make the wrong decision by leaving. He made the wrong decision by going to OKC. He didn't make the wrong decision by going to the Clippers. The best decision, in my opinion, wouldn't have been the Lakers either. It would have possibly been to me. The Milwaukee Bucks. That would have been a good decision. Like, he didn't have to replace anybody. Thank you for watching the video and making it to the end of the video. This wasn't rushed. I was editing the video. So I wanted to let you guys know. With this in, do you agree with me or Stephen A. Smith in my opinion? I totally didn't disagree with what he said about Paul George. And that was my main thing. I just didn't agree with that opinion. So why not put this video out here? By the way, subscribe to my other channel, Common Mail 6. That's my main channel. This is just a second channel where I do video games and talk about the NBA or football. I know it has a name, Common 062K. That's the one I just thought would work perfectly with this channel. So, yeah, thanks for watching the video. Hit me up in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe.